What's up guys, we are PropertyTales back again with another episode where today we'll be tackling one of the most asked questions we get all the time, which is how much do you actually need to earn to afford a landed property in Singapore? Because every time people hear the word landed, immediately they picture some ultra rich family, business owners with all money, or someone driving a supercar pulling up into a giant bungalow with a koi pond or a swimming pool next to it.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone thinks landed property is only for the super wealthy. Like you need to be earning some crazy amount every month, be a CEO, director, or maybe grandparents pass down some huge inheritance. But honestly, that's not entirely true. Of course, landed property is expensive, and yes, it's still considered one of the most premium property classes in Singapore. But after helping many clients upgrade into landed homes, we realized something very interesting. A lot more people are actually more than capable of entering the landed market than they initially thought. The issue is not that they can never afford it. The issue is usually them not knowing the numbers, the pathway, and if they are financially ready. So today, let's break it down properly. What does it actually take to enter the landed market in Singapore? Because honestly, it's not as impossible as people think, but it's also definitely not easy.
And of course, we're not here to sell some unrealistic dream and tell you anyone can buy landed. No, cannot be ma. Or else every mother's son will all stay in a landed property today. Instead, what we're going to do is, today we're going to talk about real numbers, real progression, and real expectation. So let's take the facts and numbers. Take for example, how much is it going to cost you to afford a typical entry-level landed property today? Say a freehold, 2-story inter-terrace in an OCR location with a land size of about 1,800 to 2,000 square feet. And in today's market, generally, you will be probably looking at about 4.5 million and above. Certainly, there may be cheaper ones depending on the location, condition, and land size. And don't forget, there are definitely much more expensive ones as well. But for the discussion on hand, let's assume a purchase price of $4.5 million.
So now let's break down the finances. Typically for a property purchase, you'll need a 25% down payment. So for $4.5 million property, that's $1.125 million. And out of this, 5% must be in cash. That's about $225,000 upfront already. And the remaining 20%, which is around $900,000, can be paid using a combination of cash and CPF. Then on top of that, you also need to pay buyer's stamp duty, which comes up to about $209,000. Now technically, this amount can later be reimbursed using CPF if you have sufficient CPF funds upon completion. But realistically speaking, for this kind of purchase quantum, many buyers still end up using a significant amount of cash. And once you factor in renovation and miscellaneous costs, you probably want about $1.5 to $1.7 million accessible funds to enter comfortably.
Not cheap, and that is a lot of money. Not everyone has $1.5 million sitting around just to pay for a property purchase down payment. And that is just one part of the equation, which is why realistically it's not easy and not everyone can start off to buy a landed property as their first property. Unless of course, you can rely and apply to the bank of your parents for a bit. Sorry to digress for a little, but seriously, if you're lucky enough to have parents with deep pockets, then honestly, don't have to be paiseh. Just ask for help.
Yeah, agreed. We actually see this quite often, especially for younger buyers entering higher quantum properties or new launches, where parents willingly help to kickstart their child's property journey. Everyone wins within the family. So next time when you are doing better financially, you can always repay in other ways. Filial piety is not dead, okay?
So for the next part, the part 2 of the equation, aside from the down payment, that would be loan. Now, of course, this depends on your loan eligibility. It could be slightly higher or lower depending on your age, loan tenure, interest rate fluctuations, and existing liabilities. Can borrow so much or not? Well, that depends entirely on your income. Wait, not entirely. You can also show funds. Showing of funds is a way to increase your recognizable income and to bump up your max loan amount. And for this one, for those with rich folks, by the way, you can also ask your parents for help. That is if they got a lot of cash to show lah. But let's move on and just use the standard numbers first. Now, assuming a loan amount of $3.375 million. Based on this loan amount, your monthly installment would be somewhat around the 11K range. Taking the interest rate for fixed at 1.45%, max 30 years. For calculation's sake, let's assume the max tenure for 30 years, which means our dear buyer is 35 years and below. For those who want and can borrow lesser, just note that these numbers would change accordingly. But honestly, from our day-to-day experience serving landed clients, when they reach this stage in their life, where they are seriously considering landed as their next home choice, most of the time they won't be below 35 years old not so young. So you can expect your loan spread to be less than 30 years.
Unless, of course, you're some crypto millionaire in your 20s, then honestly, respect. Please teach us instead. But jokes aside, this is where people suddenly realize, wow, okay, the monthly commitment is actually serious. Because yes, buying landed is one thing, maintaining it comfortably is another thing altogether. So based on these numbers, what kind of income should you realistically have? To comfortably afford this kind of purchase, we would say roughly around a combined household income of about 30 to 35,000 per month would be the safer range. And when we say comfortable, we mean you can still travel, still dine out, still support your kids, still own a car, still have savings, and still have breathing room.
Yeah, because technically speaking, can a household income earning 25K combined still buy a landed? Honestly, yes you can. But your lifestyle becomes very different when almost half of your monthly income is going towards your mortgage alone. And then suddenly every other commitment seems to matter a lot more, such as your car loans, your credit card debt, rental loans, how many kids you have and their expenses, insurance, helper salary, parents allowance, and so on. Everything will start adding up very quickly. So technically, you can afford, but whether is it sustainable in the long term or not is another question.
And this is something many people don't talk about enough. Buying property is not just about whether the bank approves your loan. The bank only checks whether you can technically service the debt based on TDSR. But real life is different. You still need to cater for your emergency funds, renovation budget, lifestyle maintenance, unexpected repairs, medical emergencies, and future planning. Especially for landed living, because once you own a land, everything is yours. Roof issues? Yours. Gate issue? Yours. Waterproofing? Yours. Drainage? Yours. Electrical rewiring? Yours. You have no MCST settling things for you. So these are things condo owners do not have to think about, and we'll definitely cover more of these hidden landed ownership costs in future episodes, so do keep a lookout for that.
Yes, it can sound very scary when people start throwing all these numbers around, but from our experience, some of these fears are slightly exaggerated lah. People always say landed cost of maintenance is very high. Is it true or not? Well, yes and no. Maintenance is definitely on the higher side than condo living, but whether it becomes painful or manageable often depends on how you planned out from the start. So here's one trick that most people don't talk about. If you do one solid renovation up front, especially for older landed homes, things like good waterproofing, roof replacement, proper electrical rewiring, new plumbing, good quality materials, you can actually save yourself a lot of headaches later, because if you cut corners initially, although you may save more money up front, but if something starts breaking down every now and then, you may find that suddenly your cheap renovation becomes very expensive. Stuff like waterproofing especially is key. Leaks are the worst. I can tell you it's the #1 biggest headache. Can you imagine when you've moved in already after your reno and all, and then because you want to save costs, realize persistent damp patches start appearing, moldy smell, musty smell, and then this destroys your home slowly. I don't think anyone wants to be in a position such as this lah. So if you settle all the main ones properly at the start, potentially there will be lesser breakdowns lah, and that will lead to less internal squabbles resulting in a much more peaceful home. So watch out for what really matters, and you will realize that your cost of maintenance down the road will not be that high actually. Do it once, do it good, can liao.
And honestly, some people are surprised when they realize landed living isn't necessarily ultra luxe every single day. It's actually just a different lifestyle. You get more space, more privacy, more freedom because it's your own land. and multi-generational flexibility. But in exchange, you also take on more responsibility. And personally, many landed owners actually enjoy this part because everything is yours. You're not sharing walls, not waiting for condo approvals, not dealing with leaf breakdown notices, not fighting for parking lots, and you can plant whatever plants you want. It's a very different feeling altogether.
Now, comes the next question. Is there actually a step-by-step pathway towards landed? And the answer is yes. Actually, there's a very clear common progression route that many Singaporeans take, typically from a BTO or resale HDB to condo and then to landed. And that's the classic progression route I would say. Over time, every move helps you accumulate more capital, more equity. HDB profit, you sell, take that sum to roll over to fund for your condo profit, and now add that to the previous capital, you down pay that to the landed.
But interestingly, we've also helped clients skip certain stages completely. We've seen clients jump straight from HDB to landed, and every time we tell people this, their reaction is always, huh? How ah? But honestly, the concept is actually very simple. It comes down to capital growth from previous properties, your income growth over time, proper financial planning, and entering the market early. And of course, meeting us also. Because sometimes after breaking down the numbers for clients, they suddenly realize, hey, actually, maybe I can do this.
Exactly, so a lot of people think that landed buyers are all born rich. But honestly, many of our clients are just normal working professionals. They simply entered the market early, held the right properties through the different growth cycles, upgraded strategically, and also slowly accumulated, enough capital over time. Because you're not just purely slogging and saving your way towards the landed dream. In fact, you're moving your way there. So in short, each move unlocks equity, each move increases capital, each move improves affordability, and that is what asset progression is. So it's not down to luck, not gambling, and not timing the market perfectly.
Because honestly, we've also seen people spend years waiting for the perfect timing, waiting for prices to crash, waiting for interest rates to fall, waiting for elections, for recession, and for war. In fact, some happened already, but prices still hasn't dipped. Then while they're waiting, the market continues moving without them, and years later, entry prices become even higher. Meanwhile, clients who make calculated moves earlier are already progressing forward. But of course, let's be realistic. How many people can immediately jump from their first property straight into landed? Not impossible, but definitely not common. Especially for people like us. Without bronze spoon, silver spoon, or golden spoon, most people's journey starts off from a BTO to a condo, maybe another condo upgrade, and then eventually a landed. And that's okay, because property upgrading is a marathon, not a sprint.
For many families, it's very normal that this journey may take up to 8 to 12 years, sometimes even longer, but the good news is, so what? Whatever it takes you to get where you want to be, right? You don't need to start rich, you just need to start correctly. All in all, it's a combination of 4 things: utilizing their capital and profits from the sale of their property, together with their career progressions and personal investments. Ultimately, we cannot downplay the importance of your income as well, because if you have enough down payment, then the last equation is your income. Quite logical, right? The more your income grows, the more your affordability grows, then the more you can loan. But if your income stays the same, then your property ceiling in terms of how much you can loan becomes stagnant. But luckily for most non-self-employed people, not like us, your income grow year on year lah, assuming that your progression is pretty solid. So to enter into any higher quantum asset like landed, then there are 2 things that must happen to make it easier. Your income increases and your capital increases.
So now let's share a real-life example. We had a couple whose combined income was around $12,000 when they bought their BTO around 7 years ago. Their BTO purchase price was approximately $590,000. Fast forward several years later, their combined income grew to around $33,000 monthly. And when they sold their flat last year, they walked away with more than $500,000 in gains. Now, some of you may think that, hey, it's just $500,000 in gains. But the bigger picture goes like this. Their loan was around $450,000, and after probably paying off for about 7 years, the leftover is around $380,000. And although they made $500,000, the proceeds coming back is around $740,000. meaning there's still a shortfall of $455,000 which they need to find somewhere if they wish to make it happen. Or it's a case of them making the next step into a private condo first and rolling it one more time to push up for that difference in number. That's why it's harder for someone to move from a BTO straight to a landed. Not impossible, but you really need quite some bit of cash or parents' money lying around to make that move. Otherwise, the natural progression is to take another step via the private condo route before settling for a landed eventually. So instead of upgrading into a condo first, our clients decided to skip the condo route completely and entered the landed directly. They purchased a $4.05 million inter-terrace. No inheritance, no lottery win, no crazy crypto profits. Just progression and income growth. But I mean, if you got lucky on the inheritance lottery or from SG pools, then good on you also. What ah? Well, honestly, actually thinking back, right, we actually secured a really solid deal for them. It was a 2.5-story original condition inter-terrace sitting on around 1,800 square feet of land. Structurally very solid, good layout, good bones. So they did a complete gut renovation which cost roughly around $350,000. But honestly, original condition house isn't half bad. One can hardly call it a downside. First of all, entry price is good and you can't find this price anymore. And after renovation, the transformation is exactly what you want it to be. There was another house nearby with similar land size and build up, but in more move-in condition, transacted at $4.4 million back in 2024. So this was definitely a steal in 2025.
So naturally, as a buyer, you will always ask how next time when I sell can earn money or not, can hit 5 million? But I can tell you the question should be, how much more upside can this move potentially create for you instead? Because with the entry prices for landed properties continuing on the uptrend, having entered at such a good price and improving the property condition significantly by renovating properly, the value of your property can only increase.
And honestly, this is why we love landed property as an asset class. Not because it's some magical guaranteed investment, nothing is guaranteed. But because fundamentally, land in Singapore is limited. And over time, many buyers eventually aspire towards larger living spaces, legacy homes, and longer-term family planning, which naturally keeps demand relatively resilient, especially for well-located landed properties with good attributes.
So is landed difficult to achieve? Yes, definitely not easy. But impossible? No. And if you're watching this thinking, actually, this sounds somewhat achievable, then honestly that's already a very important first step, because many people often dismiss the idea or eliminate themselves before even understanding the numbers.
So landed is not just about buying a house, it's about entering one of Singapore's strongest long-term asset classes, and if planned correctly, it can become both a lifestyle upgrade and a wealth progression tool. But again, please don't misunderstand us. Buying landed just for ego or status is dangerous because the mortgage commitment is real, the maintenance is real, and the cash flow commitment is real. So before entering landed, the important question isn't, can a bank approve me? The real question is, can I sustain this comfortably long term?
Exactly, because some people can technically buy, but later every month stress until cannot sleep because you have to squeeze until you cannot squeeze and then have to eat grass. That defeats the purpose. You should still be able to enjoy life after upgrading and not become a slave to the mortgage. And honestly, this is why proper planning matters so much. Not blindly chasing the biggest property possible, but understanding your affordability, your progression timeline, your income growth potential, and the long-term goals.
And speaking of progression, one thing we're noticing right now is something very interesting happening in the landed market. Terrace entry prices have already been climbing significantly over the past few years, which means some existing terrace owners are already exploring upgrades into the semi-detached, corner terraces, and even detached houses. Because as terrace prices increases, their accumulated equity also grows, and this creates another layer of upgrading opportunity within the landed segment itself, which honestly is something really exciting happening in the market right now, and we're seeing quite a lot of people making these moves.
So in our next episode, let's dive deeper into the different types of landed properties in Singapore and their respective price points. Because honestly, people still do get a little bit confused between terrace, corner terrace, semi-D, detaches, or even good class bungalows. And the pricing differences can be huge. So we'll break all of that down properly in the next episode.
As always, thank you guys so much for watching. And if this episode helped you better understand the realities behind landed ownership, do hit the like button and subscribe to follow along for more property content. And if you're curious about your own progression journey, whether you're currently staying in a HDB, condo, or even already considering landed, feel free to reach out and DM either one of us over here. We'll be more than happy to break down the numbers and help you understand what's realistically achievable for you.
And remember, you don't have to start rich, you just have to start correctly. See you guys in the next episode.